Peter, thank you for joining us. Can we start with the fact that you did not begin your life as an artist? You were a biotech banker before you were an artist. Can you tell me about, were you an outlier in the world of biotech banking?
I imagine I've been an outlier the whole time. As I look back, I didn't know it, but I didn't do anything the way everybody else did. It just didn't go that way in my life. So I also did not start as a biotechnology investment banker. I started as salesman, selling light bulbs for Boy Scouts, selling other stuff, selling this, selling that. I was a good salesman. I sold cars. Guy came into my car dealership and said, "You're the best salesman ever. You should come to Wall Street. You make $1 million." I said, "I want to go to Wall Street and make $1 million. I come from a really modest, humble, and wonderful family with two great parents, brothers and sisters. Parents have passed away. Brothers and sisters were all thick as thieves. My brother came here tonight. We've been thick as thieves forever."
There's another Tunney in the house.
Yeah,
somewhere.
there is, which is a lot. I went to Wall Street and I got involved in biotechnology almost right away.
Why? But everyone I've ever met who's a biotech banker is either a medical doctor or worked creating chemical compounds in the pharma industry.
Or they studied something.
They weren't used car salesmen.
What I was a used car salesman that was hit by a car and came back to life. I was on a bicycle in 1975. I got hit by a car 50 years ago. My knee still hurts. I've got scars if you want to see them later. I got good ones. I got hit by a car. I got blasted. Well, my blood came out of my body. You're basically lifeless lump of bones. My femur went down the street, piece this big. My knee shot up, shattered my hips, and just you bleed out. You know, if you're underwater, have a heart attack, they probably have 10, 15, 18 minutes to get you going. If you bleed out, there's nothing there. You're just empty. So that happened to me. And I woke up in the hospital sometime later. I was in a cast on this side up to here. This was all exposed, hanging up in the air, pins drilled through my legs, everything crimson, my cast crimson, black and blue from my head to toe. My arm strung up like this. I was 13 and a half years old. I was like, what the fuck happened? And they told me I was hit by a car. I didn't believe them. And in and out, because you're also on a lot of drugs all the time, I wasn't believing the story. I thought I was in a simulation. It was just, it's too jarring and too much to believe. Sure. And I have so much empathy for, you know, a friend of mine. He lost his parents, his brothers and sisters, and his grandparents all died in a plane crash. He didn't go on the plane. And these things are trippy. You know, I know a girl that went to rehab and her whole family died while she was in rehab. They took a vacation from her. And so these are jarring events, right? It's funny, last night someone was telling me, we were at an amazing art event last night, just a few people. And she said, you know, there's a lot of artists that had like a life and death experience or accident like that, like Frida Kahlo, like this one, like that. Because I think you realize, to answer your question, and I couldn't have articulated any of this then. In fact, I couldn't have articulated anything except for the last 20 years. Let me dial it back a little bit.
Sure.
I went to a party when I was 14. They had cute girls, marijuana, and beer. I love this party. And I came home when I was 45. That covers that whole chunk of time of what I did. So it was all like one long day for me, in and out of cast, this and that.
But in that 25-year stint.
That's 30.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. 30-year stint. You, at some point, were like, I'm going to go from being a biotech banker to being this, an artist.
So
how does that happen?
Yeah.
Were you always this, but just had to work in the job of a biotech banker?
Dude, I'm not any of these things. I'm just posing and everything. It's so crazy. So the hospital story, that's the reason I got into biotechnology. Because I got there, and like everybody else, I read my stuff. I passed my Series 7. I did what I was supposed to do. I thought everybody had to read everything and memorize everything, like passing the bar. That's not really true of stockbrokers. No one knows fucking anything. It's unbelievable. And I can tell you that because at my firm, I worked at a firm.
I think that what you mean to say is that was not true of any stockbroker in the 1980s when Wall Street was going bananas.
Correct. There was probably some lawyer that knew stuff, but here's how I could define it for you. After 7 months after my I passed my Series 7. I testified as an expert witness for Payne Webber and securities fraud cases. I never brought a piece of paper with me to a trial. I'd sit here like this. And one guy who grilled me, he said, "So, Mr. Tunney, is it true that you were selling cars 10 months ago?" I said, "That's true." He said, "Used cars?" I said, "New cars." He said, so how is it that you're an expert in securities law?" I said, "Well, that's pretty easy. It's because I know every single bullet point, and law. And what your client did was violate Rule 405B. Are you familiar with that rule? Because if not, you should look it up. Because again, I would just shred people, just shred them, because I knew all that stuff. I was born that way, by the way. I have a good memory. So when I got to Wall Street, one day this prospectus came across my desk, had a picture of a thermo heart on it. And I read it in there, and I would describe it. I sold it then, too. We raised a lot of money off this pitch. Drano for your arteries. Your husband is lying on the floor with a blood clot. You give him an injection, and just like the graphic on Drano, it's going to work its way through there. That drug is called TPA. It's called tissue type plasminogen activase. It was founded by Genentech. We raised $50 million for them for this drug. I love this deal. It was so cool. I would talk about something cool. You have to remember, I didn't spend 7 months in the hospital. I spent 10 years in and out of hospital. I was on crutches the whole time. I had 20 operations. I'd be in for 7, out for 1, back for 3. I mean, that's just a crazy story of in and out. And unlike on a TV after-school movie, all your friends don't visit you at the hospital every day. They go out and do what they do. They get drunk. They play sports. They chase girls. They don't come to the hospital, especially in the beginning when you're in my condition, you're in ICU. You're not having visitors. It's not like that. So my peer group, thankfully, just became doctors and nurses. That's who I hung out with. I was in pediatrics in Long Island. There was 3 beds in my room. I was by the window. So for my first run in there, it was like 6, 7 months. I also couldn't sit up. I was in a cast up to here. I could just move my arms. Maybe I saw 500 other patients. Average hospital stay then was probably 2.3 days. It's probably 1.5 days today, something like that. But so you're constantly having every injury you could imagine. Most of it in Long Island, it's trauma. Kid hit his head on the front lawn, got knocked out. He's here, broke his leg, got in a fight, fell off the bike, lost his... So I knew a lot about that, and I talked to the doctors and the nurses. And in fact, I always give a huge shout out to nurses, because my doctor would come in every 5 days, see me for literally 3 minutes. But nurses took care of little broken Petey 24/7. I could almost cry telling you that. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't feed. I couldn't do anything. So that is your lifeline to the world, you know. So I have a huge amount of empathy for nurses, and they've gotten such a raw deal the whole time. They're on strike right now, I think, in New York, right? Fuck them. I think they should be.
We have at least one punk who's a former nurse.
So,
definitely a bunch of
because
people
I know
in
we're going to
healthcare
run
here.
out of time. We're not even through question 1. I'm going to get there, though. You know, ask Ethan. This is how every interview, you could Google it. I sit down for an hour-long interview. The guy says, "So tell me." And then he's like, "Time's up." And I said, but I'll get to it because it is good. But you do need to know the backstory. So I love this biotechnology thing. And I just became a beast for that. In fact, I just saw it here today, getting ready for you guys to tell you what a time warp I'm in. The next deal I did was called Amgen. This is the prospectus for Amgen Clinical Partners, 1984-5. This was Amgen was a $300 million cap company. We raised them $84 million in exchange for 8% of their gross sales. I looked this morning, it's a $180 billion company today, billion. So I loved Amgen. Here's a good punk story for how I got involved in that. So I just loved Amgen. And I read in my studies that you have to do due diligence as a fiduciary for your client's money. Anytime I tell you to do something like a lawyer or a doctor, it's a legal obligation that you have. I can't tell you to buy these bonds if they're not good for you. Just imagine how fucked up our world is today, because holy shit, they're cold calling people, selling them all the same thing. It's impossible. So I never did that. So I flew out to Amgen. The chairman of Amgen at the time was a guy named George Rathman. George Rathman is one of the best CEOs, visionaries, luminaries. He's like the Bill Gates of biotechnology. So I give my little card. I'm from Melville, Long Island. Peter Tunney, account representative, here to see Mr. George Rathman. Does he know you're coming? Nope, this is a surprise visit. Okay. So they were just in the process of doing this investment banking deal, which was, today we could look back, that would be certainly Payne Weber's most important deal they ever did, most lucrative, everything. Every $100,000 my clients invested in this, they ended up making $50 million. And it was just a huge, it's your once in a lifetime buying Apple, right? And so he must have called the chairman of Payne Weber, who I knew because the way I got brought in from the car dealer, I was like an exceptional case, and I met the chairman right away. So people thought we had this relationship. I didn't. I just played it, right? So I'm out there in California. My coach ticket, I probably made $41,000 a year at that time or something. And he must have called Donald Marin, who was the chairman of Payne Weber at the time, who was also the president of MoMA at the time. Our office was 1285 Avenue of the Americas. And so he called up Don Marin. We all know now because we were friends until they all died. He said, I got this guy from Payne Weber here. What's the deal? I thought we were good and we're closing our deal. He said, our deal is closed, but we have nobody out there. No, you've got a guy here. Well, what's his name? He said, Peter Tunney. And Don Marin said to him, just meet with him. It will be easier. That's the joke they said. So which I'm proud of, by the way. I get into George Rathman's office. He said, so, Peter Tunney, what brings you here today? I was like, well, George, I just wanted to look you in the eye, do a little due diligence on behalf of my clients. I'd like to meet your 10 top key personnel. That's what it said in your thing. Kick the bricks a little bit, have someone show me around your physical plan, and let me know your plans for the future. He was just like jaw dropped. And I said, come on, what's the big deal? I have to do this. If I'm going to dedicate clients' money to that, or even ask them to invest, because a sale is the same as an offer. I don't know if you all know that in the securities business. If I pitch it to you, it's the same. I have the same responsibility whether you do it or not. So I said all this, and he was like, just so like gobsmacked is all I could say. I said, what's the deal? He said, I've just never heard of anything like this in my life. It's never happened to me. I said, how could that be possible? We have 4,000 brokers. Don't they all come out here and pepper you with questions? He's like, are you out of your mind? So maybe I wasn't out there. Answering that question. But you know what I did do?
Wait,
I did meet all 10 top people.
Hang on.
Yep.
How do you have the chutzpah and the hubris to go into that room and be like, instead of, I can't, if I was in your position, if any of us.
Well, today, now that I know more, I'd be mortified and humble and be like, it's like meeting Bill Gates. I put on new clothes. I didn't know anything, bro. I didn't know
shit
anything.
either. I
didn't know it. Well, also, I was the only broker out of 4,000 brokers that went there. But here's the interesting thing, and there's really a lesson in here. So I met all the top 10 personnel. Several of them became CEOs of venture capital companies I founded after that. I pulled them out. I had a relationship with them the whole time as they grew from $300 million company. So I met the 10 employees. There's a book called GMP. It's called Good Manufacturing Practices. That's how you build a biotechnology plant. The walls are vacuums. You have to step over on like 3 sticky mats because there can't be more than 100 particles of air per cubic, 100 particles of dust per cubic foot. It's called Class 100 space. I learned all that stuff. I haven't even talked about that since I went there, and it's fresh in my mind. I saw how they're building the plant. I know what those pipettes. So when I got back to New York 2 days later, you know what you are in New York City? The world's expert in biotechnology. I didn't know that. I'm a one-day visit. I came back. Everyone wants to talk to me. Anything about biotechnology, they came and talked to me. I went around Payne Weber and trained young brokers how to sell this deal because it was a complicated deal. And because for the firm, all they want to do is gather assets and collect zillionaire people. This is how you do it. And this is how you keep them. And they knew it. So all of that happened. I'm answering your first question, how did I become an artist? Here it comes. In 1987, believe me, I know. In 1987, the stock market crashed. Amgen's common stock was probably $50, went down to $15 for, by the way, 2 days. And let's just reflect on this great stock market crash of 1987. It went from 2,500 to 2,100, basically. That was the deal. Black Monday, the Depression of 1929. People are fucking crazy. There's not even a reason for the crash of 1987. Subprime mortgage crisis is a reason.
Sure.
You have a big reason is defaulting and the dominoes are falling and everyone has lied. There's no reason. They just say, this is getting too much. You know, John Templeton said the stock market will go to 4,000. We've obviously popped in the bubble. All right, the Dow basically just touched 50,000. Today, that story is like, I stubbed my toe at the Beverly Hills Hotel pool one day. It's not really a big story. So, stock market crashed. Because I had been sent around, a guy called me, I know his name, Bill Logier from the Des Moines, Iowa office, called him, Peter Tunney, I got me one of these. It said on your statement, Amgen Clinical Partners LP Value NA. That's what it say on your client statement. Okay. If we called every PaineWebber broker in here today, I think probably 2 out of 50,000 guys would be able to explain to you what they didn't know anything. I didn't know that. Peter Tunney, I got one of these Amgen thingamajiggies Value NA. Would you give me $5,000 for it? My client got wiped out of margin. When I sold it, I sold more than they had. It was like a syndicate deal. So maybe you said, Peter, I'll buy 300,000 of it. It's 3 units, but I can only get you 1.5 units. I cut people back and I distributed. That's how I built my book. And so I had the guy for it. Now, because I also involved in writing that book, I know very well that they are totally transferable. In fact, they would have to take my new guy into the deal because he puts in money. And it says right in the book, you have to give the old guy 2% of his capital, but the new guy has to be a guy that owned the same security from the original offering. I got the guy. So I called up my richest client in New York. This is how I became an artist. And I said, Paul, I got another Amgen unit here for 5 cents on a dollar. You'll pay me 5,000 commission. I was thinking 5,000 commission. He has to put up 5,000, but I could charge him 5,000 commission, which is 5,000 of face value of the 100,000. So he said, well, Peter, I'll take it. I'll take as many as you've got. I said, well, how many could you buy? He said, Peter, I could buy the whole deal. At that point, I never knew anyone had $80 million. I just didn't know that was a thing. So I was like, you could buy them all? He said, yeah, and I will. Give me as many as you can. I said, wow. So I thought that day, how could I get some more units so I could make more $5,000 commissions? And I sent out a wire to 4,000 PaineWebber brokers, said, anybody else want to get liquid in their PaineWebber R&D Value NA? And my phone rang off the hook. Nobody cared. They were just taking them off their client, just raising money. Stock market crashed. This is 3 or 4 days now after the stock market crashed. So I found some more units. And then
So how do you become an artist after
So
this?
shortly after that, I found
Sounds like an awesome deal.
I found a lot of these units, and I called up my client and I said, I'm not going to sell you these units and make $5,000 each. You're going to put up the money. We'll be 50-50 partners. He said, I'll put up the money. We'll be 70-30 partners. I said, you put up the money. We'll be 70-30 partners. I'm not even going to put in that part of the story, but so I went to this friend of mine.
Just give us the name.
John Varvatos. So he was like a struggling pants designer at the time. We're friends to this day, and I think it was him and my sister, and they lived there. I said, look at this guy, look at this. What is this? 50 years of rent? I mean, it's unbelievable. Here it comes. He said, what are you going to do now? And I said, I'm going to be an artist. That's it. Sorry to pop your bubble. I was not making art. I was not thinking about making art. I never wanted to be an artist. That was never anything. I don't know. You got to make something. I go, I'll get to that. I got to set it up. I read a quote yesterday from Hunter Thompson. He says, find out what you want to do in your life and then reverse engineer your life so that you could do it. And so what I was doing was that I was setting it up. I was setting up the way I wanted to live. By the way, I didn't know shit, guys. I didn't know shit. I'm 25 years from getting sober. So just imagine the track I'm on. It's so crazy.
Can I ask you something?
So I became an artist that day, and I painted my apartment white. I did all that stuff, and I was just too embarrassed to look back. Here's one good moment, then we'll get back to a new question. I was in the dumpster by the St. Regis Hotel. Shorts, Timberlands, no socks, 3-week beard, no shirt, maybe Sharpie on my nipples. I'm just in there looking for stuff, good stuff they had at the St. Regis Bronze. I'm kind of like trading places, a couple of my blue pinstripe suit friends, because that's what everybody wore then, was a blue pinstripe suit. Came by the dumpster, I popped out, and they're like, Tunney, is that you? I felt like Dan Aykroyd, ready to pull the salmon out, on the train in trading places. So, yeah, that's how it was, and I did that. And then the thing is, everything I was saying, the whole story I told you about this, all came true. And in 1991, I moved into a giant double townhouse built by the Rockefellers on the Upper East Side and became an artist. And I made a secondary market in classically illiquid things. All I ever did in my life in that business was answer my telephone. I never made one offer in my entire life. My phone would ring and someone would say, would you give me $10,000 for this all-cash real estate partner? My dead client put $100,000 in. I would just say yes. And I accumulated them with my partner. Next.
What was the first painting? What was the first painting you made where you were like, this is where you manifested your vision in art? Because so far you're wearing your pajamas, you got cute girls, you're smoking a bunch of weed. You didn't make art yet. When did you
I was making art. I was making art.
When did you make art?
It was
where
so
you were
uninformed.
Like, this is it. This is
I'm
what
not
I
sure.
was here to do.
It's really interesting. It's a moving target, right? I thought I had made something great on X day after declaring myself an artist. It's in the garbage. I threw it out. It's nothing. It's completely uninformed, naive nothingness. Everyone in this room, I've asked you to make a piece of art today, be better than what I made. I had no game whatsoever. I was completely uninformed. I just didn't know anything. It's just amazing how little I knew, you know? It'd be the same as if someone here, you hit 10, excuse me, 10 free throws one day in your backyard in a row, and you're 70 years old, and you think, I'm going to go play for the Knicks. I'm pretty good, you know? I had no idea. So when I made a piece then I dictated letters. I had a secretary, we typed on envelopes, you know, like that. I used to put art on my envelopes, little fingerprint, handprint, and send it like an important business guy. Then I would even do my paper. I'd do like this, just like streaks with 4 different colors. On like 50 pieces of paper, my secretary put in the printer, my letters would come out. And many guys in New York City have those letters framed in their office when I go there. I just wanted to get their attention as marketeer, you know. It was like a mailing I wanted them to open. And I took my envelopes and I stuck them on a black board, and then I wrapped the board with a piece of rope like a present. Because I'm a fucking genius, of course. I mean, wow. That piece is in my show in Miami, clearly unsold for 34 years. No one's even interested. But what it does represent is that moment of no game at all. Just naivete is the only word I can think of. Just totally uninformed. I didn't know anything.
Was it fulfilling to make it?
It was at the time. I really enjoyed making it. I enjoyed saying I was making art, and I enjoyed being an artist, you know. But I don't feel like it was really ever anything. We even look back, there's work in this building that I made a while ago that I won't even show. It's so crudely made. What was I thinking? I have now spent 30,000 hours making word paintings. And I could show you super easily in this room where the craft, I'm good at it now. And now I don't want to do it anymore. I honestly don't want to do it anymore. I'm coming to the end. I'm ready for a new mountain and a totally new reinvention. That's all me and my team talk about. I'm going to close my place in Miami. I did it for 15 years. I had 35 million people come through my gallery there. I don't want to be in there anymore. That thought came to me during COVID. I was having 10,000 people a day, basically every day. And I was used to that. And I went to the gallery during COVID. There was no people there. My God. There was no people there for 10 months. By the time my team came back, my room looked like a beautiful mind. Pictures were crooked, hundreds of Post-its and notes and what. And I would say that in early COVID, I became the person I'm supposed to be, the artist I'm supposed to be, and everything, because everything stopped. And I realized one day, just walking around the Wynwood walls by myself, week after week, month after month, no traffic, no parking issues, it was quiet. I realized this is what I've been longing for. I needed space and time. And I realized also, I hate people. I really hate them. I fucking hate them. I just don't want anybody. And so when the Wynwood walls finally opened, I said, I'm not open. I'm never having anybody in here again. I had to open. Then I moved my work studio over there. I used to work, right? You would just walk in and I'd be working there. It was probably part of the attraction. But I don't want anything like that now. I desperately search every day to create space and time for myself. I make art usually from 6 o'clock at night till midnight when my wife and kids aren't here. Maybe I'll go to 1 or 2 a.m. if I don't have to get up the next morning. I get 8 hours sleep every night, haven't had a drink in 20 years. And so I've worked like that. It's amazing. You get a lot of work done, you know.
How did you wind up there?
Okay.
And what preceded your trip there?
At that point in my life, I don't know. Maybe it's $1 million, but my guess is $340,000 is the total amount I had sold cumulatively. So I told them I needed weed to make art. I'm an artist. I got sober, I sold $50 million worth of art. So maybe there's a correlation. I'm just saying it may not. I could have been wrong about that too. As it turns out, I was wrong about everything. What was your question? How did I get there? Yeah. All right. So it's a funny story. I had a gallery like this on Broome Street. Some people in this room had been there. It was called The Time Is Always Now. For almost 10 years, I did a show for an artist photographer, a buddy of mine, raconteur named Peter Beard. Peter Beard and I went hard for 10 years. And we became rock stars in this world. I promoted Peter Beard as this artist and person. He was a super fascinating person. He really hadn't sold a photograph. I mean, probably sold a couple of photographs here and there. But first of all, there was no photography. The year is 1991 or 2. There's no photography catalog at any auction house in Phillips. Doesn't exist. Photography was not an asset class. Wildlife photography was never an asset class. And so with Peter, he liked to draw in the photos and do stuff. So we went into that pretty hard. And then in 1996, we were on safari and he got hit and trampled by an elephant and crushed, and he lived. And we came back and I just booked him a big show at the National Center for Photography in Paris. And the confluence of Elephant Boy crushed by elephant on the eve of his first retrospective lit up the world. And I had video, I put it out to all the news for free. And so when we got to Paris to do this show, which is a show that was offered to me, and I said, I'll do it and I'll pay for it. I had some money. Then I put up a 6 show because I didn't know any better. I just thought you had to put everything in it. I put up the craziest show you can imagine. Certainly, and I'm not even bragging, there's no photography shows even close to anything like shows that we put up. That it just got denser and denser, bigger and bigger. It was just this thing, right? And there became a revenue stream from the photography. So after I did that show for Peter Beard in Paris, I brought it back here to New York, and that was just like, we made Studio 54 look like children's care. You know, we had a hard party going on there day in and day out. We'd roll into another city for 3 months and just tear that town down, Berlin, Paris. They knew we were there, you know. Peter Beard and I broke up on January 15th, 2002. His wife came in and took everything, told me to go fuck myself. I spent all of my money. I spent 10 years, $10 million, and I built an asset that today is probably worth $1 billion. And just full on into him, not into my art. We did 6 books. I did 30 shows around the world. I had the show going on every day in New York City. That was my world. It was, say, 4 times bigger than this gallery with 4 times as many pictures hung. They just came in and took everything. And I was sitting there with this girl. It was all just gold hooks and dust hanging out of the wall. I said, what the fuck am I going to do now? This is crazy. I can't tell you how bad I felt. Really beyond suicidal. I know how it feels to be suicidal. I just didn't kill myself. And she said, well, you should make your own art. You're an artist, remember? I said, you know, you're right. She said, it's about time. I said, that's it. It's about time. I'm going to do a show called It's About Time. That was on January 15th, 2002. On February 20th, 2002, I'd refilled the whole gallery with my own art that I made during that time, 156 pieces of the dumbest, least informed shit you've ever seen. I had nothing, dude. I had no money. I had no art materials. I just did it. So I would have a giant photograph and I just put my letters across it. And I called the show It's About Time. So then these guys called me from the Crobar. They were going to build a new club in New York. Crobar, it is now fall 2003. And they said, we'd like you to do an art activation in there. We have $25,000 budget. I was like, that's a godsend. I need the $25,000. And I developed a show for the Crobar and for the opening of the Crobar called Signs of the Times. I made signs at a sign maker. And I had someone else give the sign maker the credit card because it cost like $30,000 to make all these signs. But they said, slow down, time passing, leaving childhood, a lot of stuff like that, which I now see in marketing, crazy as it is. And I made these signs for the Crobar. And I had a little room, 1,000 square foot room there that I was using as my staging room. At that point in your life, you need a little room, you need a mirror, you need a bathroom, you need a couch, you need stuff to entertain. And, you know, I'm working late at night on my show. And one morning they came in and they said, Tunney, you got to be out of here 9 a.m. tomorrow. We're opening the next night. I got Board of Health. I got this, I got that. By the way, when Crobar opened in 2003, we haven't had a new nightclub in New York in 25 years. Anyone that went out, anyone that knows, you went to Lotus or Bungalow. We didn't have a huge club in New York. There was no Studio 50. There was nothing. In the greatest city in the world for all this time, no nightclub. And they thought they were crazy because they were going to open a Vegas-style club and spend like $12 million. It's a 5,000 people rave nightclub. They also had the first time we ever had real DJs in New York City. Swedish House Mafia, Paul Oakenfeld, 50 names I could tell you, Eric Murillo. It was like, what was New York doing? We didn't have it.
I think you're burying the lead. You moved into the club.
Well, it's coming. I'm not burying the lead. So I'm telling you how I moved in the club because you can believe me. What I'm telling you today is true. A lot of people think I own the building. I refused to move out. It's none of that. I was there. They came in, said, you got to be out of here tomorrow morning. But they owed me $25,000. I was like, motherfucker, but you got to pay me. I'm not leaving this room. And I just said, like, I'm going to be an artist now. I said, I'm not leaving this room. In fact, I'm going to live in this room from now on. I was basically homeless. This would be a bar with a lot of girls for free. I thought it was a great plan. I said, I'm going to live in here now. He was with like 5 policemen, investors, like 25 people doing their final walkthrough before they open. It's a big undertaking to open that in New York. He said, how long are you going to live here for? I said, 45 days. He said, 45. He said, I'm going to break David Blaine's record. Remember, he was in the clear box over the brick. He was 44 days. I'm not leaving this room for 45 days. He said, well, you're going to leave tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We're going to throw you the fuck out. Get out. They left. I took that as like a warning shot. So I called up my boys. I went to my dental office place. We took out 10 tons of shit in my buddy's pickup truck. I wallpapered the room with the New York Post. I built built-in queen-size bunk beds. I put thousands of little tchotchkes like this that I had in all the windowsills, and I moved into the room with my pit bull named Britney Spears. And they came in the next morning. I was in my bed watching like West Side Story, smoking a cigar with Britney Spears. And they all walked in and said, what the fuck? I mean, it looks like I've lived there for 25 years. They were just like, what the fuck is this? I said, I told you. I'm living here now. I said, you could stay tonight. They just couldn't even process what they were seeing, like they opened the wrong door or something, you know. And the dog has got to go. And my dog ran up, jumped on the guy, and bit him. So then they opened the Crobar, and that became my VIP room. Oh, my God. I mean, people heard, you know, Tunney's living in here. I walked around in my bathrobe. So they said I could stay there for the opening night. I lived in Crobar for 321 days. A lot of people say, because you may have missed, what were you, like, in your 20s? I was like 44. So, you know, I was living in the Crobar at 44. And that concludes my story of I went to a party when I was 14, and I came home when I was 44. At the end of my 321 days in the Crobar, my older brother, God bless him, and my younger brother came to get me and said, are you ready to go home now? You've been gone for a while. I did 10 hard years with Peter Beard, followed by 1 year in the Crobar. That is records that will never be broken, and I'm alive to tell the tale. So I said, yeah, I'm ready to go home. They drove me to rehab. What great guys. I didn't know that. What I was planning at that very time, I had contracted a 220-foot Russian fishing trawler, and we were going to go to Antarctica, where I was going to do the great existential art show of all time, Population Zero, and bring my signs. No smoking, keep off the grass. This was my developed plan. My brother undid all that. I didn't go to Antarctica. I went to rehab in Wernersville, Pennsylvania, thank God. So then I came out of rehab and began life again, and this is where the mountain begins. I walked out with a shopping bag. It's like prison. You get what you went in with, right? I have like a broken phone, a candy bar, some Mardi Gras beads, and some unknown object. That is what I re-entered this world in. I hadn't opened my mail in 5 or 6 years. I lived between my 2 brothers, about a mile from each one or less, in Long Island, in Huntington. Rented me this house, which I loved. It was an old schoolhouse from the 1800s. And I was in my driveway, and I made some art. And my friends would leave from New York City, like, where did you go? You know, it's supermodel bisexual karaoke night at Cipriani tonight. Are you coming? I was like, no. I'm in Long Island here. Why don't you stop by on your way to the Hamptons, you know? And they would come by, and it's like, why don't you buy that? And he's like, do I have to take it with me? And he would give me $5,000. And that is where I began. And I've been doing that every day for 21 years and built the little mini empire that I have now. That's how I got here.
Can I ask you a question about sobriety?
Sure. By the way, I'm very open about my sobriety because my run was not very anonymous. My recovery is not very anonymous. And I will say one great thing about that is about a few months after I was out of rehab, this guy called me up and told me a really tragic tale. Someone overdosed in his apartment on coke. It was his best friend's kid brother. Just a tragic, tragic tale. I said, why are you calling me? He said, you are the most fucked up person I've ever seen. And I heard you got sober, so you might be able to help. I was so offended. And I'm hard to offend, believe me. That has been the blessing of my life. I get the calls. I'm on the front lines of mental health every day. Multiple 501c3s, billionaires backing, billionaires that lost kids. I host World Mental Health Day in New York the last 3 years, do giant activations in mental health, and I take the calls. I mostly take the calls of people that look like you that lost a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. I could just cry talking about it. It's really hard. It's the real end of the road. It's the unspeakable shit, and it comes to me. What was your question?
I think you answered it, but...
So I'm in service, by the way. I'm right now here, everything, my life. I'm just in service. I'm going to be in service. I'm going to make 700 more dumb paintings. I'm going to die. That's it.
A lot of people have their brothers or sisters or husbands or wives, whoever, take them to rehab. I, on January 8th, celebrated 6 years sober.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, good for you.
There's still this thing where you can't stay sober if you don't want it more than they do. And at the time, it doesn't seem like you wanted to go to rehab. And yet you came out.
I was bribing the janitor to get me Coke. And he said, I got it for you, kid. It's out by the 3rd fence post. This is in Pennsylvania. So I'm out there at night in my pajamas, escaping from my room, taking the screen out. Dude, it's like 4 square miles. So it's like 17,000 fence posts. I'm out there digging one. Then I realized after about my 4th one I dug it, this guy's fucking with me. I went in the next day. He said, did you find it? I said, I did. He said, I know. I've been here for 22 years. The joke is on you. And I would have voted myself least likely to get sober. Quite a few of the guys I went with are dead. Some are still sober and with me today. God happened, right? Other stuff happened that is beyond my pay grade. I'm not a very religious person. My favorite expression about that is religion is for people that don't want to go to hell. Spirituality is for those of us that have already been there. I'm in the latter group, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, and by the way, as much as you say your family, your friends, and your wife can help you, and they can also take you down, right? Like that's the biggest, that's the number one thing. If you talk to anybody, either the person that's suffering or the family that's suffering from the person that's suffering. I read a great one yesterday, because I live in this world all day long, every day. Someone sent me one and he said, the people that need help with mental health and addiction are not who I see. I see the people they've crushed. That was the psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And that is correct. Very rarely does that drunk guy go in there and straighten out the family. There's no way. They got to go get help from the constant abuse and having the rug pulled out. I see everybody nodding in here because I give talks all the time to thousands of people sometimes. You tell me one of you could raise your hand, I dare you, that has not had some mental health or addiction issue touch your life. There's no fucking way. It's all around us now. And so that's good for the stigma of it. That's good that we talk about it here. 20 years ago, this would be a different kind of a tenor of the talk.
You said you're in service now.
Yeah.
What is the difference between making your art in service versus making your art before you were in service?
I made really crappy art that didn't resonate with anybody before.
But was the
and now I make
motivation
art
for
that,
it different?
Yeah, my motivation then was for me to be a kingpin, badass artist. Yeah. My motivation now, look around this room and think about recovery. To affect the quality of the day, that is the highest of the arts. You could take that to the bank. That's Henry David Thoreau. That is the highest of the arts.
Yeah.
I'm still running against the wind. Everything is going to be amazing. Wild life. Reach what you cannot. Nothing happens unless first you dream. I stole that quote from the great Carl Sandburg, who wrote the book Lincoln, the War Years. And Carl Sandburg, you may or may not know his history. I dive into everything in here. He was a hobo that rode the rails, had the shit beat out of him with iron bars, stuff like that. He was a migrant farm worker. You ride the rails in the 1800s, that's a rough life that you're having there. And then he wrote Lincoln, the War Years, one of the greatest things ever written, one of the most important things. And he said nothing happens unless first a dream. It's all good. Fear less. I have 2 kids and I have 2 little babies. That's another little story. But they gave me this baby at the hospital. Like, here you go, Mr. Tunney. I literally went out to the car. The car seat was still kind of like plastic wrapped. I was supposed to do something with that. I didn't do it. And to this day, I cannot secure the car seat properly, and very few people can. It's impossible. You'd figure, we have a car on Mars. We should have a car seat that just goes like that. And by the way, if you don't do it perfectly, your children die. That's the stakes, right? I put my little boy on the back seat, laid him down, just put the straps over him, and put the car seat in the back. I had to go 20 blocks. I just want to get the guy home. And I was in abject terror that I had to keep this thing alive. You know, there was a movie that said, you know, after you get sober, everyone wants to get in a relationship right away, usually with a drunk person or something. But they said you get a houseplant first. If you can keep the houseplant alive for 1 year straight, then you can get a girlfriend, a dog. If you gave a dog for life for 1 year, then you get a girlfriend, you know. So I was kind of in the houseplant phase. I had this baby and stuff. And I was talking to my sponsor, and I said, you know, I'm just terrified every night. You know what I'm Googling while he's laying there next to me? If a light sheet falls on his face, he suffocates and dies, and I go to jail, get gang raped. Like, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm going constantly. I mean, everything, they asphyxiate if they roll over, if they do this. You know, my wife is totally cool. They're just latching them on, sleeping. But I'm terrified every night. So my sponsor said, you know, Peter, fear is a pretty good thing. But you could tamp that down a little bit. Fear less. I started painting fear less as my mantra. Everything here is like real and really flowing and coursing through my little arteries. So after a while, I said, I did fear less. What do I do now? He said, love more. And I did a show called Fear Less, Love More. I could cry just telling you that. That's about as real as it gets. So that's how these things pop up. And then I realized time flies. I did a show called Tempest Fugitive. I just couldn't believe the water under the bridge here, you know. I was walking around New York City last night, right past my old gallery on Broome Street. That's 1991. I was thinking, God, that's 20 years ago. It's 35 fucking years ago. I'm not even 35 years old. How is this even possible? That's how I feel. Yeah. I feel today, I walk in here, I feel like Ebenezer Scrooge. I'm floating like 12 inches off the ground. Because you walk down the line and you see all these things. You see the Man Ray book, the golf ball, the thing, the Polaroid, the badge, the lanyard. It's just stuff. But that Polaroid sticking out is my best friend who died. And that thing has, every single object in here has some great meaning to me. And so I'm Scrooge just looking through here and going for service. I don't want anything. I want to buy Tiny Tim a turkey. That's it. I feel, I have so much to make up for, you know?
So I think there's two. I think
like stopped out. I love it. I'm not even trying, bro.
No, well, so we got to land the plane, and we're going to do a little bit of a breakout session right now. But I think
we'd have any Q&A. You want to do a question?
Yes.
Anyone
let's do a little Q&A.
Anyone have something?
And I think you know, the question I'm always trying to figure out is that people who reinvent themselves, who go through the fear of that, who hit bottom of whatever their first mountain is and have the courage to move forward into that unknown. Almost all the most amazing, most impactful art, creativity, startups happens from someone who crashed in their first mountain and started off in their second. And I think the thing that I'm always like fascinated by, and the reason I love to speak to people like you who have been through that journey, and the reason I think everyone who's trying to reinvent themselves needs to hear those stories, is because how does that work? We don't get taught how to reinvent. It's not what they teach in MBA programs, but I think the thing that you're coming back to is service.
Service,
being reborn in
it's
service.
Discipline,
yeah.
It's doing it every day. I just read Charles Bukowski today. He said, unless you've died a couple of times, you really don't know how to live. And there's so much truth in that, you know, and at the same time, that's because I'm a crazy person. I said to this wonderful woman I know, she's like 85, she's the wisest, coolest person I know, and we were talking like this kind of thing. I said, you know, ever since I've been like 5 years old, I always felt like something terrible was just about to happen. She said, oh, that's so odd. I've never felt that way. She's not one of us, bro. She's like a normal person. She doesn't feel that way. She said, I actually think there's always something wonderful right around the corner. The fuck are you? I never thought that once in my life. And I've been validated. And so I was in a really hard spot. By the way, this all sounds funny and everything. This is some dark, hard, suicidal shit that I'm telling you about, right? And to just get to the other side of that, that is what I spend my service to do. That is what every single thing in here is about, so that you can live for another day. My message is hope. Don't worry, it's not over. This company failed, it really means nothing. If I'm helping you in sobriety, your dog dies, your sister's fucking your brother, who knows? Shit happens. Next. I did a show called Own the Day, and I think it's good to leave you with Own the Day. It's in here somewhere from Emerson, but I saw this quote from Emerson, the smartest of all of us, at the end of his life, and he said, "Write it on your heart." I thought, wow, that's pretty strong. I never heard that before, write it on your heart. He's about to give me the answers to the test, like love your mother and work hard and all things will be well, right? He said, write it on your heart. Every day is the best day in the year. I didn't want to hear that happy horse shit, like every day is a great. And then he said, he is rich who owns the day. And no one owns the day who allows it to be invaded with fret and anxiety. And when this day is done, be finished with it. Some absurdities and blunders no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can, because this day is too dear to be wasted on your old nonsense. Drop the mic, Emerson. So I think about that Own the Day all the time. He didn't have a little fret and anxiety machine in his pocket every day. So we have to manage that. That's right. Get off that device. Go do your pottery. Do whatever. We have to manage that part. But think about that fret and anxiety. We allow that in. And we thrive on that. And that's a big battle. So I was thinking about all this. I was having a really hard moment. I was talking to some smarty pants guy like you. And he said, well, Peter, nobody said it was easy. I was like, fuck, that's true, but they didn't tell me how hard it was going to be. So I made a big painting that said, nobody said it was easy. And I sold it the next day for $100,000, and that solved all my problems. So that's not a business plan. That's not a business plan, right? But that's how everything has happened to me. I don't have any other straight line stories. It's all like that. I thought fear less, love more. I sold $1 million of fear less paintings. Who knew? I was terrified the whole time.
I was dragged to an event in Tribeca a long time ago in 2014, and it was an art exhibit, and Nick Jonas performed, and it happened to be also your art was everywhere. Can you tell me a little bit about like what I was doing at this event that your art was at?
I love when you say 2014 was a long time ago. I have stuff in my pockets from 2014. I have boxes I haven't opened from 2014. Like, it's just like that. So I'm good friends with the Jonas Brothers and their whole team for a long time, since they're like 14, 15 years old. So I would say 20 years ago when I got out of rehab. And it came to me that Nick had wrote this song. He's splitting up from the Jonas Brothers. They were in the record company. The guy at the record company, he's big CEO of record company, has a painting that says nothing happens unless first a dream, with musical people's journeys. And they were all sitting in the meeting, and they said, we really have to do something different for Nick. We don't want him to be Nick Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. We just want him to be Nick Jonas, like Barbra Streisand, we got to break it out. Like Beyonce, she used to be with another group, in case you didn't know, but we never think of that as Beyonce. And these were the examples. And they were wondering what to do. And the one guy said, why don't we call Peter Tunney? Maybe he'll do the music video for this thing. I was in Lake Como at the time. And they called me up, and they played me the song. They said, why don't you do a music video? I said, all right, it was Friday in Lake Como. They said, well, we're doing it on Sunday in LA on a green screen. And I just riffed on the phone to him. I said, Nick will be climbing a mountain. He's riding a bike. He's on a journey. He's a young guy. He's jealous about it. They said, we love it. We love it. We're doing it. I said, that's not really a music video. I'm just riffing with you. He said, no, you got to come home. We'll get you the plan to do the thing. So I go to LA. I roll up to this 150-foot green screen with 90 people on there. And all the shit that I said in the phone call, like the mountain and the motorcycle and the checker cab, is all there. And they're like, okay, Pete, what's the first shot? I mean, it would be exactly the same if they asked any of you what the first shot. I said, okay, get on the motorcycle, let's go. And I make this music video. Here's a really good, you're touching on a good story. So we launched the song Jealous in a gallery. It's kind of like this. It's just one block over. And Nick was there, and all the people were there. We all look back at that, because those guys have been on a real journey since then too, breaking up, getting back together, making a move, doing the thing. They're married, kids, married, all this kind of stuff. We all look back at it as like the golden inflection point, when we're with the marketing teams, which are serious marketing teams now, booking $100 million checks for tour and stuff like that, we all look back to that Jealous concert on Franklin Street is the coolest thing we ever did. Wow. And nobody wanted to do it. They didn't understand how it was going to work. It was like old school New York. We were smoking cigars outside, the who's who of whatever came. It was just a cool, gritty event. Everything's so slick and Louis Vuitton'd up, you know? And so I made the music video. They show me what they're going to do with the cut. Had nothing to do with me. They had like some young hipsters putting in stuff that, like Batman. Like, what? I said, I'll edit it. I never edited anything. A friend of mine has got an editing place here, so I went there. Took me like 11 days. I literally went there at 8 in the morning and finished at 11 at night because the whole thing was green screen. So when you see the music video, you could all watch it Jealous. So I finish it. We all love it. I turn it in. They're like, holy shit, you're a genius. You know, it comes out at midnight. I'm not with them. I'm in New York. They're launching in LA. And I make the mistake of, I'm really new on Vimeo or Instagram at that time. I didn't have anything. So I just clicked on to watch the video. It's so cool. It has like 100 million views right away. And I start reading the comments. I read about 1,100 comments. Here's what they sound like. Worst video ever. What's wrong with you? Green screen sucks. You suck. Who's the girl? What's that old guy? Who the fuck is Peter Tunney? The worst music video of all time. Just not even, I liked it. Nothing. This is the biggest lesson I'll give you tonight. Biggest lesson I'll give you tonight. I call up Philly Mack, who's their manager, who's in charge of everything. It's like midnight here, it's 9 o'clock there, or 3 a.m. here. I forget, but it was late. I said, Philly, he took my call. I said, Philly, I'm so sorry. I think we just missed it. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I just saw the video and I read the comments. He said, Peter, what are you talking about? It's a fucking hit song. Everyone over here is going crazy. I said, what do you mean? Didn't you read the comments? He said, we don't read the comments. That's like eating cancer. That's what he said. I used that.
Cody,
once
can you write that down? That's like eating cancer.
I used that once a week. And I was just chowing it down. I couldn't get enough of it. And that became the #1 song in the world. And Nick Jonas is now Nick Jonas. Then he got back with the Jonas Brothers anyway. So that's what that night was the launch of Jealous, and really one of the coolest things we ever did. Because it wasn't that well planned. It happened at the last minute. They were listening to me. I battled with them. Everyone wanted to do it slicker, better, serve more. I think I served White Castle cheeseburgers. And that was a legendary event. That is how you... That was, for me, that was a cool event. And to them today, if we called up Nick right now, it'd be like, it's the coolest thing we ever did. Because they're not as cool as you think, you know.
It's a great, excellent event so far. I got a question in terms of your journey as an artist. When you look back over that journey, what's the one lesson you wished you'd learned earlier that impacted you in your growth?
I wish I didn't worry so much about outcomes. That's it. That's in my whole life. That affects my children, everybody around me, my team, everybody. I'm not in the results business anymore, bro. I'm in the putting in the fucking work business. That's it. That's the story of my life. I learned all that kind of stuff in sobriety, and then I took those lessons into my life. You know, there's so much good stuff in recovery, like do it every day. That's good. That's a good lesson for every single thing you do. Ask Tom Brady. Ask anyone that's achieved anyone. They were the hardest trained. They showed up every day. They were there for the other teammates. They didn't go out at night, didn't get wasted, didn't miss the Super Bowl, none of that stuff. And to show up every day, be considerate of the other people, and do not worry about these results. I saw this little thing on TV once, just flipping around the channels at 2 a.m. There's like a televangelist preacher on there. He said, you cannot make a pineapple in your garage. You cannot make a pineapple. God makes pineapples. What you can do is put good soil there, water it every day, nurture it, put the stake in there, but you do not make pineapples. And God, that hit me so hard. Hallelujah. So, we don't make pineapples. Don't be a pineapple maker. Be a nurturer of people around you, of yourself. And for everyone, listen, the biggest lesson I have for everyone that comes to me, listen, no one comes into AA on a winning streak, right? That's not the way it is. But everyone that comes to me, they really are so hard on themselves. Yeah, you have to make amends and do all that. Dude, you got to forgive yourself. You know how many people I know that have killed someone while drunk driving? They look just like you. They're not terrible people. They're not Charles Manson. He was at a party. He was a good guy. Until the kid came out of the bushes. He killed his neighbor's kid. Fuck. That's some hard shit. And I was in this rehab where this subject came up, and the guy said to me, listen, I forgive you, God forgives you, who the fuck do you think you are? And so those like little things lit me up along the way. I remember those things. And so the not getting so wrapped around like your ideas of what your outcomes are for your startup or whatever. I tell you the first one, everything that takes 3 years really takes 10 years. And everyone's full of shit. So like you just start with all that. And you just stick to your business. Don't worry about the outcomes. Worry about what you do. Every single thing in here is 2 pieces of paper that I'm putting together. I live in the crack of 2 pieces of paper when I'm working. Should I put it over? Should I put it under? Oh, you know, they'll burn the edge, and that'll put it over. I didn't have that meditative power 25 years ago to do that 50,000 times a week. I do today, and I relish it, and I think about it. The same as someone that's like Marlon Brando with his tomato plants in The Godfather. Yeah. You want to plant them as slowly as you can. We're not in a rush for anything. Plant them well and deep every time. And just focus on that. I'm in the micro. Fuck multitasking. There's no such thing. I'm talking to you. You lock in with me. Otherwise, there's nothing going on. So that's my one thing. Don't worry about the outcomes.